Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a deep dive look at the major astrological transits for the month of December. Now, before we get too tied up into any of that information, I got a couple of announcements to make. One, I'm going to remind everybody, I started saying this at the beginning of October. I'm going to say it again now. My regular pricing, which is what, not the special that I was running in November, but the regular pricing, this is the last month to book at regular pricing. It is what it is. January 1st, I'm doing a price increase. I started warning about this in October because I wanted nobody to come back and say, well, I didn't have the time. I didn't know. Babies, I've been saying it for a while. You had an entire quarter to figure it out. And this is like the last month of that quarter before I increase my prices on January 1st. So I'm going to remind everybody of that. I got a couple other changes that are set to come out in the new year, which is also going to impact availability. So you're going to see some website availability that's also going to change here in the near future. It's not quite set in stone quite yet, so I haven't like applied anything. But if that ends up impacting one or two sessions with certain people, I will be contacting you individually to rebook your sessions onto a different day if that is in case, because I'm looking at doing another set of weekly events that I do here with the local community. Some of y'all know I host like witchy Wednesdays and tarot Tuesdays with a couple of the local bars. I know it sounds weird, but it's a fun atmosphere sometimes. Um, we're looking at adding another location into that mix. And if that in fact gets committed to the way that I'm anticipating, that is then going to start to impact dates of availability from January forward. So yeah, getting more and more into local events and doing some local things and working on some things that little bit of pocket of what I have been doing is going to lead to more stuff in 2026 because all of it does. Everything that we've been doing, these little connections we've been making, just kind of segueing, using that as my segue into everything else. Um, little commitments, little transitions all throughout the year of 2025. And this last month is a big month of exactly that, making little commitments and making little transitions that will lead to a bigger part of what will be the new normal in 2026. Now, this isn't an intense month, but it's a busy month. It's an active month. There's a lot of transition in the energy. There's a lot of connection. There is a lot of communication. There is a lot of movements. There is a lot of shifts where you were at back in October, where you were at back in August, who you were working with, what you were dealing with, what you thought was going to be the case. Not quite the case now. And in fact, we are transitioning into a new vibration. We get glimpses, commitments, connections into new, but not all of us are going to be full on debut. That's more January. Now, human effect, can we have some big announcements and debuts in December? Yes, but the bigger energy is in January. So even if you have one or two people come out and be like, guess what we're doing? A lot of them are still going to say, and it starts next month, next month, next year, next month in January. December is incredibly busy, but it is also hopeful. It is also healing. It is also connecting us to a variety of people. It is bumping parts of our ego and our confidence. And I don't mean ego in the negative sense. It's like it's gaining recognition. There's movement, there's transition. There is this vibration to shift our opinion towards something that, again, will be the new long term normal. And we're retracing, revising steps we've already made in a lot of ways. But the retracing is subtle. It's not like whenever Mercury is retrograde and we know literally whatever we connect to within 3 weeks, it's going to go into upheaval. It's not like that. And whenever it comes to the month of December, there are gains, unexpected, necessary shifts towards gains. We haven't had a whole lot of Jupiterian gains. And I've said this before, since the nodes changed signs. Now, back in the early parts of 2025, whenever we had all that mess of Venus, Mercury retrograde, eclipses, and everything towards the beginning of 2025, that messiness did not give us gains. And if it did give us gains, it gave us gains with a caveat. Like there was that something extra to it. It was the stuff that was happening in temporary energy. It was meant to show us some certain things, but not necessarily anything foundational during that time frame. And I'm literally talking about like the first 4 months of the year. We didn't experience true gains with the North Node in Pisces back then. Or if we did have them, they were very diluted. We didn't understand everything quite yet. Since then, we didn't start to have the transitions of planets going back into Jupiter signs until September when Saturn moved in. Over the course of the rest of 2025, so October and November, we've had Neptune retrograde back into Pisces. We've had Mars, the Sun, and Mercury do half a retrograde in Sagittarius with Mars and the Sun in Sagittarius. And we actually start this month with a brand new Venus in Sagittarius. Well, these are all Jupiter signs. These are planets moving within the bounds of Jupiter. Hope, luck, prosperity. Sometimes Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. Plans for the future, certain lessons that must be had, the actions that we must take to heal certain things. Jupiter is all about healing and understanding the wound. The thing about Jupiter and his healing, though, is sometimes his energy is like a cat on the table. And y'all have heard me say this before, or maybe not on the podcast, but I know I've said this to a lot of you as individuals, because people hear like, oh, it's my Jupiter return. Like, this is supposed to be great, right? Like, well, Jupiter returns happen in a 12th house perfection year. So it's kind of bittersweet. It's kind of like a cat on a table. Flick, flick, flick. I don't like this. I don't like this. Off the table it goes. And the expansion energy of Jupiter is to push the things off of the table to make more space for something new to come through. I don't feel like we're making more space. I feel like the space already got made. We've had multiple things over the course of this year to enforce that space got made. Now I feel like we're in the first little steps towards growth, expansion, new levels of connection, new levels of healing, putting new things together. And the main thing that people need to understand is it's going to be very, very hard to focus the more excited we get about some of the things that are coming through, because there's going to be some excitement. But we also spend a good portion of this month with Mercury in Sagittarius. Doesn't see things clearly. There's going to be part of us that we're not seeing things clearly, that we're very over exuberant and over joyous and ADHD brain. That's a big way I can also describe part of the energy this month, because sometimes whenever it's like too much of a good thing, we're everywhere. Things are everywhere. Everything's up in the air. Nothing's completely clear, but nobody can focus quite enough either to get something clear. So again, if we're trying to start something new in December, you as an individual might be grounded enough to get something going, but that doesn't mean everybody else is ready, or that they're there, or that they're capable. Some people are going to be off in la la land. And by the end of the month, there will be a tone towards the new responsibility, a tone towards a new direction, a commitment that is on the cusp of being revealed. And there will be some things, literally that last 10 days of the month, going through the holiday season, of revealing things. For some people, the revealing will be disruptive. For other people, it will be pivotal. But the thing that's taking shape and coming into light and getting revealed and coming into focus and about to get debuted, for one or two people, you might have the debut, but even then you're still not working with it until we get into January. There's something very timely in the way that it comes through, in the method of which it comes through, that shows you a big portion as to where your focus is going to be going into 2026. There's so much new on the horizon. And every time we start to feel like something is going our way and we're getting some kind of solution and we're finding solutions to problems and we're working through the wounds, we're working through the frustrations, every time we get a little bit closer to getting something figured out, it's excitable. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also not grounded. With as much energy as we're going to be having through the mutable signs. So again, Pisces and Sagittarius. We even start the month off with a full moon in Gemini, which is still a mutable sign. There's so much transition that people that prefer to feel grounded, that you like to be stuck in a rut, this energy is going to be kind of confounding because of how much shift and how many changes and how much movement is underway. So if you like to be stuck, if you like things to go very, very slow, if you like things to happen in a natural way, this month will almost feel unnatural because of how much change, how many shifts, how different the dynamic is going to be. And there's a lot of motion. Please note I'm saying motion, movement, not emotion. I'm not saying that we aren't going to have it, because we are. It's excitable, it's joyous, it's connected, it's communicative, it's buzzing around, chitter chatter, chitter chatter, chitter chatter, chitter chatter. So much going on, so much being said, so much being worked through, so much being talked about, so much getting planned. But if you're trying to put plan to pen and paper, that's going to be difficult. Because there's so much fluttering and so much movement and so much going on that it's going to be very, very hard to get people to sit still. Not impossible. It's not impossible, but it's going to get real hard to get people to sit still. If I look at the numerology, and for the last few months, I've included a little hint of numerology into there. And I'm not a big numerology person. I've said this to plenty of people, but I can't ignore it either. Whenever it comes to the elements of numerology, this is a 3-month, and it's the last month of a 9-year. Endings, closure, letting things go, releasing things, purging. That means we're going to still have some releases. We're still going to have some things come to an end. I actually feel like most of the endings are pretty well known and understood. They might still be in process for some of you, but they're not for all of you, just to be clear about that. 3 is actually a number that is of the nature of Jupiter. And again, we spend a lot of this month with the transits going through Jupiter signs, with the transitions, with the hope, the abundance, the prosperity, the actions, the reactions, the connections, having a hopeful vibration to them. Hopeful, helpful, connected, wholesome, sure. Healing, being a big part as to what is necessary to commit to the new order, commit to the new revelations, commit to the new that comes through in January. A lot of the transitions of this month connect us to the profound newness that will come. And this feels like a big wave of transition, as something new will start to come into focus as the month progresses. That's a very timely focus for many, many people, based off of just kind of how this energy has been presenting itself. So I'm not getting too heavy in anything. I feel really light. I don't know about anyone else, but I've been feeling really light since both Saturn and Mercury turned retrogrades. Yay! Or ended their retrograde, turn direct. Ugh, it's been nice. So I just want to kind of focus on the transits. We're going to look at all of the major transits. Of course, we're not going to do everything hour by hour. That's what the weekly episodes are for. But the main focus is getting prepared for just how much is coming through. And you're going to notice some gaps where we'll have a couple of timelines where there's not any big transits, and that's okay. That also means that there's going to be space and room to do other things besides big cosmic karmic vibrations. Those are still there. But I also feel like there's a lot of like leeway to feel like we're living too. Just to be clear. Okay. Okay. Let's get into the transits, of course. And let's get into December the 2nd. Now, the thing about December the 2nd is I kind of covered this in the monthly episode already. We have this sextile that's going on between Venus and Pluto. Now, this is actually more exact, roughly around 3 a.m. I got this at 1:30. It's fine. This right here kind of comes off of the coattails of Venus entering Sagittarius. And while this is going on, Pluto is going through a square to the moon. This kind of has a layered effect of like, again, we have something that we want to either change for the long term, or there's something that's been going on in a certain way for a long period of time that we need to change it. Either way, it's long term and change. It's kind of in this vibration, but it's either we need to change something that's been sitting there, or something new comes in. And as soon as it comes in, it's like, oh, I want it forever. That kind of thing. This is the mix. It's still a change. For a lot of people, it's something new. And there's that long-term effect of either we're changing something that's been there for a long term, or we're accepting something new in, and it's going to be there for the long term. So that's a big part of this vibration. For some people with the Pluto stuff, we can have some triggers. I don't feel like we're getting as many triggers with Pluto right now because he's already been over this area of the sky multiple times. So this is not new energy in this regard. Like if we've had some triggers in the past, we've had them. We are already aware of whatever they have been. Okay, our next major transit is not going to take place until December the 4th. This is actually going to be in the evening time, roughly around 5:14 p.m. So I'm going to bump this to 4:30, 5:30 time frame. Yeah, there we go. And this is our full moon in Gemini. Now, I said this in the weekly episode of this one right here. I'm going to say it again now. This is a noisy, loud, pronounce, revealing. Because this is a full moon in Gemini sign, in the sign of Gemini. This is Mercury's sign. And Mercury has just ended a retrograde. Some of the things that come out now are more damaging than what was going on before. The Mercury retrograde, especially the house of Mercury going through Scorpio, it has brought a lot of secrets to the surface. It's brought a lot of like underbelly, undercarriage things up to the forefront. And this is the peak of something, but it is also right after a newly direct Mercury. This is also an instigation. This is also something new. This is also news, commitments, filing, serving, documentation, communication that leads to something starting. It is beginning. It is a new vibration. It's not necessarily old. Some parts of it can speak back to the things we were trying to commit to back in October for some people, but for a lot of people, this is raw new energy. So be aware of that. Okay. Now, in the afternoon of December the 5th, so I'm going to now bump this a day, we're going to get this trine between Mars and Chiron. And I think this is really interesting because Mars is hosting Chiron. And if we think back to that week of October 20th, the one that I beat up on for so long, like this week, that, okay, so that week, that was also the week of the Jupiter Chiron square. And we had a lot of planets that were going through Scorpio, making aspects to that Jupiter, kind of like enforcing Jupiter's like freeze effect of like Jupiter removing certain supports from certain people. In this regard, it's different because now we have planets in Jupiter's sign making aspects to Chiron. So we're not inflicting a wound anymore. We're not, I don't mean infliction in quite the way that it came out, but for some people, I guess that's going to apply. This is more solution oriented. And for some people, the solution, and that's the big thing that I'm picking up on, the solution is something that we didn't initially intend to happen. We didn't realize that this was going to have this other type of side effect. The side effect of, in this regard, this wasn't on our focus. This wasn't in the forecast. This is what we thought about. But ultimately, it became the solution. And for a lot of people, the best solution that I gave through October and November was to do the opposite. And for a lot of people, understanding why the opposite was necessary is how we start to fix the wound, or it's how we realize we're overcoming a wound, or it's how we're realizing how we can understand a wound. For some people, if you did not do the opposite, if you decided to do the normal thing, and then again, you have these moments of feeling like your skin's going through a cheese grater. I've already given this example once before. This can be understanding the reaction to the grating. Like, this hurts so bad, but I don't want it to continue to do this. I don't want it to continue to be like this. I want to find a solution to do something different. And for some people, there's a level of support in this Mars Chiron trine. But what I want to really put a focus into is whenever we go through this month, is by the end of the month, we will experience our second square between Chiron and Jupiter. But before this perfects, we're going to have these inklings, these hits from Jupiter's sign that impacts Chiron. So it's either impacting the wound, or it's impacting the healing process. It's impacting the actions that we take to solve something, to heal something, to fix something, or it is the enforcement of the action to solve something, to heal something, to fix something. Just be aware of that. So we can still have these elements towards wounds, but we're in a much more hopeful vibration and a much more hopeful energy. Yay! Mars is going to hit this trine to Chiron. Okay. Now, this is exact on December the 5th. The last time this happened was back on October 23rd. The next time we will have, oh, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to keep going. Put a pin in that. It's the Chiron stuff that I'll talk about further in the month. Let's keep going. I'm still back on Chiron and Jupiter. I've been getting so much with this transit. Okay. On December 6th, Mercury is going to reactivate parts of the grand trine that went exact. First wave back in late October. Second wave, the most intense, was that week of November 18th through the 24th. And that's a midweek to midweek date range that I just gave you, when Mercury was going through the trine to Saturn and this trine to Jupiter. Now, the one that happened around November 20th was the most intense. And it felt like for a lot of people, it's like, I don't want to be in charge. No, not me, not me, not me. I'm not doing this. Now, the energy around the 6th, the 7th, these kind of feed together because, again, on the 6th, Jupiter is going to hit its trine to Mercury, and that's going to happen around roughly 7 a.m. The next day, Mercury is going to hit the trine to Saturn. That's going to be at around 11 a.m. So that's why I've kind of got it in the middle right here. Is like, this is kind of encompassing the 6th and the 7th. Mercury going through the trine with Jupiter and that trine to Saturn. Now, considering since November 20th, both Mercury and Saturn have turned direct, we are now more likely to voice certain things, to put them into a new order, to have a different level of accountability, to talk a bit about a different level of responsibility, to talk about things surrounding our elders, the behaviors of our grandparents, the behaviors of our parents. And again, the solution we're willing to accept now in healing that wound. And not everybody is willing to accept the healing. And of course, whenever it comes to certain narcissistic parents or people in our lives, they don't always want to acknowledge that they created a wound, but that doesn't mean that they didn't. This is more of a solution oriented, positive thinking kind of vibration. There can be a weightedness to it, but it's like stoic weightedness. And it is a part of the emotional processing that we need to work through. And there's a level of closure here for a lot of people. And even more so as we get into the eighth. So 6th, 7th, now going into the eighth. Right after Mercury leaves its trine to Saturn, Mars is going to hit the square to Saturn. This can be intense. What I'm looking at is the fact that Mercury is in Mars' sign while Mars is hitting that square to Saturn. And we just had very heavy mercurial energy for weeks. And most of it was in Scorpio, which again, Mars' sign. The recent uncoverings, the recent developments, the recent purge, the recent release, the secrets that have come out, the emotions that have been spoken, the wounds that have come through, there is now a level of action and accountability. Mars is in the higher authority and it is in the more passionate, fiery side of Jupiter. I desire a certain kind of action. And there's also this attestment of responsibility, of things with the bosses, of things with the elders. This is a very foreshadowing kind of energy because of what we're going to be going into once Mars goes into Capricorn, because of what we're going to go into as we go into 2026. Mars is going to have a rebirth in Capricorn in January. Right afterwards, Saturn will completely submerge into Mars's sign for 2 years. This is how we're starting 2026. This transit is foreshadowing. The actions, the accountability, the desires, the pressure to change something, the pressure to put something forward, the pressure to put things on. And I'm thinking of Mars. That's why I'm saying pressure. For some people, it will be disruption. For some people, it will be a challenge. For some people, it will be tension. There will be some people that they don't like how this conversation goes. It is what it is, but it also feels very, very necessary. And it feels like a completion per se of how the weekend's vibration went with Mercury being in Mars' sign, going through the grand trine of Saturn to Jupiter. But Mars is in Jupiter's sign, hitting that higher authority square to Saturn. The action, the disruption, the judgment, the push is real. Some people not gonna like it, but that doesn't mean that we're wrong. Okay. 2 days later, on December the 10th, Neptune retrograde ends. Now, this is going to happen real early in the morning, roughly around 6 to 6:30 time frame. So early in the morning, Neptune retrograde ends. But what I think is interesting is this is occurring right as Mercury is re-entering another part of his retracing. So on the 10th, still the same day, Mercury will hit its opposition to Uranus. Now, this was closer to the 2 p.m. time frame. The Mercury-Uranus opposition has been different each time. The first time Mercury hit the opposition to Uranus, Uranus was actually still in Gemini. So there was some kind of news that triggered a pullback for a lot of people, or withdrawal, or a mental awareness of something couldn't continue in the same way. So again, there was some kind of pullback. Once Mercury was retrograde, and that week again of like November 18th time frame, Mercury moved back into its opposition to Uranus, but it was also exact to the trine with Neptune. So there was some I kept saying environmental, like it feels like stuff that's impacting our environments. And for a lot of people, it was very surreal mental energy. And I feel like once Neptune turns direct and Mercury re-enters this part of the vibration, which is exact between the 10th and the 11th, is that there is something else about our environment, stuff that's been going on in our surroundings, the way that we see certain parts of the energy, the way that we see certain elements in the world, that what we were clouded about in some way, we have a shock that also removes the blinds. It removes the rose-colored glasses. It removes something over these few days. Because, again, on the morning of December 10th, Neptune is going to end its retrograde. Mercury will hit this opposition to Uranus. And by the time we get into the 11th, so just going to bump this a date, Mercury will hit its full trine to Neptune before it makes its entry into Sagittarius. There's a bit of like mental whiplash here. There's stuff that we were not anticipating. There's stuff that we are amazed by in some ways, confused by in others, inspired in certain ways. But this newly direct Neptune, there can be something towards a belief that's no longer the same. And when Mercury hits this trine, some of us, as we went through November, we were trying to hold on to a prior belief, hold on to like, this has got to be the truth because this is the only thing that I'm accepting as the truth. And something can come through between the December 10th and December 11th that it's like, no, that's the truth you wanted to hear. That doesn't mean it was actually the truth. That doesn't mean that this is actually the way things were going to go. That doesn't mean what you think it means. There was other things going on. There's been other things impacting us. There's been other things hitting the ground. There's been other parts of this vibration. And after Mercury does go through this trine to Neptune, Mercury will re-enter Sagittarius. These dates, especially once we get into this part of November, I don't know why I want to say November. I'm sorry. This part of the 11th, this feels like a gear shift. So much of a mental gear shift, the amp up, again, the ADHD brain having a really hard time getting things to focus on. And there could be something that kind of comes through that's dumbfounding right before our mental energy picks up. And again, for some people, this will be an unexpected and exciting inspiration. Somebody coming back from the past, but it's like what they tell you in this moment completely blows you out of the water. Somebody comes and tells you something that you were not anticipating, but then once, for whatever reason, now it sticks and we're willing to finally see a truth differently. And again, it impacts the belief system. And then Mercury goes into Sagittarius. And boy, howdy is Mercury on one. He wants the challenge, overconfident, over exuberant. Let's get things going. Again, bouncy ball energy. A lot of people going to feel like a bouncy ball once Mercury goes into Sagittarius. Now, we're going to be dealing with this mental energy for most of the rest of the month. Mercury is actually going to be here until January, I think 1st or 2nd, something like that. So this exuberant, overconfident, hard to focus, but super hopeful. Let's be clear about that. It's like sickly positive after a while. Mental energy of Mercury and Sag. I think a lot of people are going to need this boost to help them again with so much of the overcoming of certain wounds and certain trauma that we are kind of reactivating or have recently had reactivated. Okay, on the 13th, so bump this 2 more days, Mercury is going to go through its 3rd sextile to Pluto. There is something here about a positive reinforcement to transform something, to change something, a hopeful interaction to overcome fear, to overcome a trauma, to not let certain things bother us. The previous 2 times that Mercury hit the sextile to Pluto, one was October 30th, the other one was November 17th. So the November 17th one was a little bit more intense because Mercury was just like, I can't do that. I don't have the ability to do that. I can't commit to this. I don't want to talk about it. Now we're more willing to have some conversations. And again, we're feeling a lot more hopeful. We're feeling a lot more confident. We got a lot more of a grounded energy going on based off of the fact that Mercury is post shadow and wrapping up a lot of the energy that he activated throughout his retrograde. The other thing that's going to start to go on whenever we get closer to the 14th is we're starting this square between Mars and Neptune. It actually goes exact on the 14th. This is really interesting because, again, this is the last time Mars and Neptune are going to square before Neptune completely submerges into Aries. So again, there's a foreshadowing here. There's a foreshadowing of what a new belief is going to be, or a challenge towards belief, or a challenge towards the lies, the fraud, the deception. There is something about the challenge here, but then there's also this awareness of a solution, even though we're not necessarily completely clear on the solution. There's a reason why I'm saying that part, and I'll show it to you again here in just a second. But Mars is square to Neptune, blind ambition. Some of us are going to feel some kind of challenge kind of come through between the 13th and the 14th. And we're so overconfident, we're going to tell somebody, I can do whatever I want to do. I can run this entire company. Just watch me. Fine, do it. Oh, what? Some of us are going to bite off more than we can chew. And then again, it's going to be something that because we bit off so much, you got to chew it. You got to figure it out. You better get something to drink. You got to figure it out. The exuberance, again, the overconfidence, the layers to what's going on leads to us becoming aware of an inspired arrival for a lot of people while we're going through the Mars Neptune square. And specifically, the reason I say inspired is I'm giving a lot of grace to Neptune, as opposed to getting stuck on the negative of the lies, the fraud, the deception. Now, for some people, it will be the lies, fraud, the deception, but it's like, because this lie is so big, it then encompasses a new action of focus. And that's going to be the arrival of Mars going into Capricorn. So as I continue to show you these, this will make a little bit more sense. Oh, Mars in here in the square to Neptune simultaneously over the same time frame. We're going to have on the 15th. Oh no, it was the morning time. I'm past it. Okay, sorry. I'm looking at this going, what did I just do? Okay, in the morning time, we're also going to have this trine between the sun and Chiron. So that was actually more exact in the morning time, roughly around 6 a.m. I'm past it right here, and that's what threw me off. I apologize. The sun hitting that trine to Chiron. Again, Chiron is in Mars' sign while Mars is entering this square to Neptune. There is an understanding and a support towards the wound, Chiron, solution, Chiron, fixing something, Chiron, healing something, Chiron. And the sun is giving a vote of confidence while simultaneously Mars is going through the square to Jupiter. So the solution can also be a part of that thing that we took off more than we could chew. We took a big bite. A lot of us are taking a big bite around this day. And we're going to commit or overcommit to things that we don't normally do, but we're up for the challenge, at least in this moment. Now, when the human effect of that actual thing popping out and coming into focus is, that's a little different for everybody. But there's an exuberance in this vibration. The square between Mars and Neptune is most exact in the morning, just like the Sun Chiron trine. So this is going to be an energy that, again, can encompass the days around the 13th just as much as the 14th. And we're feeling hopeful, we're feeling confident, and we're trying to put some things in order. And a lot of this order is requiring solution-oriented energy. All right. On the 15th at 1:34 a.m. Central Standard Time, Mars is going to go into Capricorn. Mars is going to go into Saturn's sign. And this is where he's going to be until February. So be very aware that once Mars goes into Capricorn, Mars is said to be exalted in Capricorn. He actually does really, really well here. But again, we're gearing up for a Mars rebirth in Saturn's sign before Saturn completely submerges into Mars's sign. The transition of the vibration, the biting off more than we can chew, and immediately having to figure out a way to chew it, because that's what it's going to be for a lot of people. Yeah, okay. There's a responsibility that shifts into focus. There is a determination that shifts into focus. There is a drive that shifts into focus. And just because we bit off more than we can chew doesn't mean that we're going to admit failure. And it doesn't mean we're even going to believe that failure is an option. A lot of us, we are committed to the challenge now that Mars is in Capricorn. And we finally have a planet in some more grounded energy. We got some earthy energy going on. So this is a very determined Mars for a lot of people. Okay. On December 16th, the sun is going to go through its square to Saturn. And this again encompasses right after Mars going into Capricorn. So the sun putting light onto Saturn. Mars just went into Saturn's sign. So there is an arrival for some. There is a focus for others. There is an illumination. There is a desire. There is an action or a reaction that's really encompassing the vibration. And a lot of the energy is speaking to additional transitions. As we get to the 18th, Venus will go through her trine to Chiron. Now, this is going to be more exact around 3:30 in the afternoon. Venus is offering support. She's super happy being in Jupiter's sign. This is very boastful energy for her. She's wanting to put some things into order. We have a lot of exuberant energy towards the hopefulness, and we're getting closer to something new beginning. And because something new is about to kind of come through, there's something new kind of shifting into focus right here. There's a reason we've had to work so hard to find solutions, to put a lot of things into order. And we're rebuilding to this square between Chiron and Jupiter. We're not exact yet. We're a couple of days away from the exact, but this is getting real heightened again. So a lot of the energy around what Jupiter has been hosting is to help us find the solutions, to get rid of the wounds, to overcome the wounds, to put a lot of things into order. And Venus's trine to Chiron is coming from Jupiter's sign. There's a hopefulness, there's a helpfulness, there's something overconfident. It's like sickly overconfidence in some ways, but it's exactly what we need to push us into our transitions. So it's a necessary. I'm not going to call it evil, but it's necessary. Okay. On the 19th, we're going to have our new moon in Sagittarius. Now, this is going to perfect in around 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I've got it at 5:30. You can see here's the sun, here's the moon. And again, this is a new moon in Jupiter sign. This is a new moon that is loosely squaring Neptune, while Venus is starting her square to Saturn. The energy that kind of activates in the new moon is going to continue into the 20th and the 21st. So a new moon in Jupiter signs, there's something new, hopeful. There's a new part of the transition. There's a heightened peak in this transition. For some people, the new is solidifying stuff that is a long time in the process. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's a new moon at the final decan, the final degrees of a sign. So this doesn't feel like something raw, brand spanking new. It feels like finally solidifying a transitional energy that has been encompassing many, many weeks to get to a certain point. And again, it is hopeful, it is helpful, it is boastful, it is healing, it is transitional, it is connected. There's a lot of connections here. And again, this is a new moon that is squaring Neptune. The exact Sun Neptune square will happen the next day. Venus is building her square to Saturn, and the Sun and Venus are in the higher authority in this fiery sign, pushing a belief, pushing certain responsibilities, pushing an order, challenging people in positions of authority that need to make a change. So the push, there can be a challenge, but this is something solidifying into something new, but it's something that's a long time coming because again, this is a new moon in the final decans, final degrees of Sagittarius. So here's that. On the next day, here's Venus, 25 degrees, squaring Saturn, 25. Here's the sun, 29 degrees, squaring Neptune, 29. I'm not bumping this all by hour because you can see this is close enough. It is more exact in the late evening time. So sun square Neptune is exact around 7 p.m. Venus square Saturn is more exact around 11 p.m. For some people, the human effect of these squares, again, coming through on the 19th, especially with that new moon, coming through on the 20th, because this is where it's exact. For some people, it will include the 21st of, again, something getting solidified that has been there for a long time being inspired, because the sun is in the higher authority squaring Neptune. This feels like more inspirational and manifestation vibration versus pushing a lie or pushing a deception. This actually feels like challenging a lie or a deception more than anything, and especially a challenge to people in positions of authority that have not been doing well with their authority, given the fact that Venus and the sun are in the higher authority, and they're both about to, again, go into Saturn's sign. It's going to get real interesting. Okay. On the 21st, we finally get the return of our Chiron Jupiter square. That is going to happen right as the sun is leaving Sagittarius. So I will bump this backwards a couple of hours just to kind of get the exactness more into focus. Okay. Jupiter's a little bit further past it. So this was actually exact roughly around, I had it 4 a.m. I got it at 8:30, so that's fine. Here's Jupiter, 22 degrees, going through its second square to Chiron. Again, this is the second one. I almost goofed up and said this a minute ago. Now I'm going to put more focus into where it's at. Chiron is in the higher authority of the square, but both planets are retrograde. What I'm looking at is the fact that Jupiter is hosting all of this Sagittarius energy and all of this Pisces energy. And for us to finally heal something, something needs to come to an end. And as that Chiron Jupiter square is occurring, we wrap up the sun in Sagittarius. And for a lot of people, there's an ending, a finalization, a completion, a long time in the making, necessary to wrap it up before we move into something new, before our focus can shift into something new, before we can go into this new responsibility, before we can connect to our new normal, we have to wrap something up. Now, again, the thing about the Jupiter Chiron squares is the first two are this area right here between Aries and Cancer. The third and final one, which will not happen until July of 2026, occurs in new signs, new vibration. There's a lot of the energy that we have dealt with through the fourth quarter of 2025 that we will be re-encompassing and revisiting come July. So be aware of the conversations that are being had, because we are putting some things into motion that are going to last for a very long period of time. There's a long transition that is following this to solidify parts of our new normal. And the Chiron Jupiter square, for us to finally heal something, something cannot continue. And this is why I started to give examples back in October when the first one happened. It was the most exact October 23rd. I was ranting about it for a couple weeks and even afterwards to do the opposite. By the time we get to this time frame of December, whatever the opposite is in the necessary parts of your healing, we are far more in tune with it, far more accepting of it, and far more capable of working with it. All of the Jupiterian transits throughout the month of December are necessary for healing. They're a necessary part of what we're doing to prepare and transition into the new normal. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels light. But it also feels like very quickly we can get grabbed by some overconfidence. Let's be fair about that. But not this particular day, because with the moon will be in Capricorn, it actually feels very, very grounding. And of course, the sun will go into Capricorn also. We'll start Capricorn season. It is the first day of winter. Hello, winter solstice. That's the first day of Capricorn season. Okay. On the 23rd, Venus will go through her square to Jupiter. Not Jupiter, I'm sorry, Neptune. Why do I keep wanting to say the wrong planet? Venus will square Neptune. Now, this is going to happen real late in the evening time. It's roughly around 11:30 p.m. I got it at 10:30 a.m. We're 13 hours away from it. But there is this energy around Venus of like coming closer to solutions for a lot of people. But it is also like kind of getting lost in the sauce. It's kind of an over romanticized energy whenever Venus hits her square to Neptune. And there will be some people that we're a little bit more indulgent. And the only thing I don't like about the indulgence here is don't do things that's going to purposely like agitate your stomach. That's not going to be good for you. And don't drink too much. Like I mean, if you're going to have a little drinky drink, that's fine, but please do not drink an entire case. Limit yourself at a glass or a bottle. You know your limitations. But some parts of this can be a little overindulgent. And I want people to be aware of that kind of trigger in that regard whenever Venus hits the square to Neptune. But it is very lost in the sauce energy. And considering we're getting like right close to the holiday, there's some people that you are already kicking off the holiday stuff and I'm going to eat all the sweets. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And okay, baby, you do you, but also understand you're going to, trigger reactions to your body. And if we don't want that, try to be mindful. Okay. I'm not going to pick on you a whole bunch more. On the 24th at 10:26 a.m., of course, I've got it at 10:30, Venus is going to enter Capricorn. Now, for the rest of the month, we have this very heightened, tight range between Venus, the Sun, and Mars. Because again, we have full conjunctions to the Sun of those two planets coming in January. In fact, we will have 4 planets go through the conjunctions with the Sun, i.e., 4 planets rebirthing themselves in the month of January. And what I said is by the end of the month, especially the last 10 days, which we are now in, that there will be more and more honed in focus of what we're going to be doing next. And for some people, this will be an arrival. For some people, the planets moving into Capricorn are going to be parts of announcements. They are parts of a process and a procedure. They are parts of like long-term plans. But not everybody is fully geared into the long-term plan yet, because again, that's going to be more so January. But our focus is here. And for some people, there's going to be a restlessness because you can't get as much done as you want to. And so you're completely into your new vibration, which is more likely to come through in first quarter of 2026. Okay. Please note how tightly conjunct these are, because a lot of people are going to be feeling this rebirthing kind of energy. They're going to feel parts of themselves shed away. Even though we're not in the shedding yet, like we haven't had the full cazimi, the full conjunction of anything quite yet, that doesn't mean that we're not releasing, we're not purging, we're not making space, because a lot of people, we are making space. This is a Christmas for memories, not for stuff. Because there's going to be some people like, this is such a great little KitchenAid mixer, but I'm moving and I'm not taking anything with me. I've been selling everything in my apartment. I had no idea. Yeah. This is a Christmas for memories, not stuff. Just FYI, we're making new memories, new traditions, new memories. All right. On the 27th, I'm going to bump this 2 more days. Mercury will go through its trine to Chiron, kind of wrapping up all the other transits that have hit the trine to Chiron. By this time, we're again far more aware of the wound, of the things that we're trying to heal, the things that we're trying to get over. Mercury's trine to Chiron is again something that's leading into the hopeful energy, helpful energy. It is far more solution oriented of what is trying to incur. It is the things that we're communicating in regards to solutions, in regards to the actions that we are taking, and some of the things that we could be talking about. Again, because we're getting closer to this Mars-Sun conjunction, is we can be talking about this revealing solution that hasn't come through yet. It's like, yeah, whenever we get into next year, I'm going to start at this new company. I'm going to start doing this new thing. I'm about to announce. We're about to start. We're about to do. And this can be talking about the plan again towards a solution, a new long-term fix of some sort. Our last transit of the month is going to happen on the 30th. And this is where Mercury is going to go through its square to Saturn. So you can kind of see this right here. Now, the only thing that's different this time about the square to Saturn is how much is now in Saturn's sign. Because we have the Sun and Mars, less than 3-degree range. Sun and Venus, less than 3 degree range. All together, this is like a 5 degree range. You can clearly see the math there, 7, 9, and 11. There's a lot more going on in Capricorn, in Saturn's sign. And now, by the time we get to the end of the month, Saturn is finally off the 25 degree mark. He was there for a good 7 weeks. Saturn was at the 5 degree mark. And over the course of these few days around Christmas, Saturn finally moved away from that. Yeah, like literally the 28th, he's still at 25. By the time we get to this square, he's at 26.5. So we're finally getting some long-term solution-oriented action. And Mercury in the higher authority hitting this square to Saturn has a hopefulness to it. It has direction to it. It has communication to it. It has some type of documentation to it. There's something being written out. There's something being communicated. There's something being planned, even if we're not immediately enacting any level of plan. Some of the immediateness is going to come after the holidays. This is a vibration of communicating what we plan to do, the actions that we are about to do, the things that we are about to unveil, the things that we are about to do. Because again, we're going into New Year's Eve. We're about to go into a new year. The communication in the plan is very, very necessary. We will finish the month out with Mercury going through Sagittarius. It's not going to quite hit the square to Neptune, like I said, until we get into that first part of January. So we will still have this like super overconfident, I got all these great ideas. I got all this great energy. I got all this planning going on. I got all this going on. But it's a lot more grounded by the end of the month with all the Capricorn transits having kind of started their illumination. And again, there will be things that are starting to come to light and come to the surface by the end of the month. But it is going to be more so January. Now, I'm going to say this here as kind of the closing, as to kind of how I feel about like the rest of the year. I was very, very honest from the beginning. Based off of the energy, I didn't like what Thanksgiving was going to do. I felt like it was going to weigh down a lot of people, but it was going to be very edgy for a lot of people. However, something I've said to multiple people at the end of their sessions, kind of my positive way to close everything out, is this Christmas is the best Christmas we've had astrologically since like 2019. Let that sink in. Astrologically speaking, this Christmas is the best Christmas we've had since 2019. That's crazy. That's crazy to put in a thought. That's crazy to sit there and really streamline over. Like there's a craziness to that. But there's also something very hopeful that follows. Now, a lot of people, as you go through December, you start to think of like, what's your New Year's resolution is going to be? And that's great if you're one of those people. I've never quite been one of those people. However, if there was going to be a year you want to put a New Year's resolution together and it stick, oh, it's this year. It's this 2025 transitioning into 2026 because we are committing so much to a new normal. And for many of us, that new normal, there's layers, there's levels, there's a responsible tone to it, there's a timely tone to it, there's a karmic tone to it, there's a necessity to it, depending on what you're trying to manifest for yourself, what you're trying to put into focus for yourself. We start to gear into some new revelations by the end of December. All of December is a transitional month, transitioning away from old vibrations to settle into something new. A foundational, connective, communicative change to set us up for something new. And the bigger part of the new, it comes in January. It comes in January. We're waiting on January. I'm excited for January. Can you tell I'm excited for January? I'm a little excited. But I think December is beautiful. And I think it is a great way to end a crazy ass year. But I also feel like because things are going to feel lighter, people are going to have struggles with their attention span. And that mental energy in the attention span thing means we're probably going to miss some things. And anytime we miss something, it always finds a way to come back and bite us later. So there's that. And if we do have something come back and bite us later, it's probably going to be in July. It's just my gut. Because there's so much of this fourth quarter energy that directly speaks to like June, July of next year, mostly July, but a little inkling of June that there will be a connection to later on. So do with that part what you will. But all in all, this is a good month. This is a positive month. It is a progressive month. It is a forward movement month. We are not staying stuck anymore. We are moving towards something new. And for many of us, something greater. The transition is underway. And this month is loaded with all of the necessary transitions to get us into whatever the new normal of 2026 is going to be. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.